Life in gears and groceries. The wrench groaned against the seized bolt, a metallic shriek reverberating through Miller's auto. Ben strained, his muscles protesting. This beat-up Chevy Nova seemed determined to resist every repair, and Mrs. Henderson's threadbare budget wouldn't stretch to cover parts, much less his labor. He swiped at the sweat beading on his brow, smearing a dark streak across his skin. The oppressive summer air hung thick and stagnant in the garage, radiating heat from every surface. He'd been battling the car since sunrise, sustained by stale coffee and the nagging anxiety of overdue bills. Lily's worn charcoal sticks were practically unusable. Tom was saving for some obscure, expensive computer component, its purpose beyond Ben. Only the cost was clear. The specter of the property tax loomed large. Finally, the bolt yielded with a gritty sigh, a minor triumph in a frustrating day. As he pried the rusted brake caliper loose, his phone buzzed. Havenwood Groceries flashed on the screen. Another prod about the delinquent account, no doubt. He ignored it. Above, floorboards whispered beneath Lily's bare feet. Sunlight poured through the grimy window of their small apartment, illuminating dust motes suspended in the air. She sat on the faded rug, sketchbook open, but her attention was elsewhere. Her gaze drifted, lost in the vast canvas of the sky. Her pencil hesitated, then moved, not to capture the assigned still life, but the graceful lines of a vintage airplane. She envisioned herself soaring, a bird breaking free. The cramped apartment, the relentless financial strain, the feeling of being tethered to Havenwood, all dissolved as her imagination took flight. She sketched a biplane, sunlight glinting off its wings, its propeller a spinning disk. She'd become engrossed in old aviation books at the library, captivated by the pioneers like Amelia Earhart. Their stories held a potent allure, limitless possibilities, the ultimate freedom she yearned for. A creak announced Tom's presence. "What are you drawing?" he mumbled, voice thick with sleep. He ambled in, his eyes already fixed on his ancient laptop. The machine whirred and strained, struggling to keep pace. "Airplanes," Lily replied, angling the sketchbook for him to see. Tom grunted, unimpressed. "Cool. I'm trying to locate diagrams for a Wright Cyclone engine. It's a 9-cylinder radial, seriously complex." He hammered at the keyboard, brow furrowed in concentration. Lily sighed. "Why are you always obsessing over that stuff? You'll never build an airplane, Tom." "Maybe not," he murmured, lost in the machine's hum. "But I can understand how they work. That's almost as good." He adjusted his glasses, eyes glued to the screen. The internet sputtered and died. Below, sweat plastered Ben's shirt to his back. His muscles ached, but progress was tangible. The new caliper was in place, the brake lines bled. With a groan, he lowered the Nova. It was far from perfect, but it was safe, and that was paramount. He reluctantly punched in Havenwood Groceries number. "Miller's Auto," he said, his voice heavy with fatigue. "Mr. Miller," a sharp voice trilled. "We're calling to follow up on your overdue account. It's 2 weeks past due." Ben massaged his temples. "I know, Mrs. Davison. I'm working on it. Things have been slow lately." "Well, we can't extend credit indefinitely, Mr. Miller. We have obligations too." "Understood," Ben said, his voice flat. "I'll bring in a payment tomorrow." He ended the call, a knot of apprehension tightening in his gut. He glanced toward the stairwell. He could hear the muted cadence of Lily and Tom's bickering, familiar and comforting. He inhaled deeply. He'd manage. He always did. Upstairs, Lily had joined Tom, sketching the biplane on line paper. Tom had transitioned to searching aviation history. "Look, Lily," Tom said, pivoting the laptop. "Did you realize Havenwood used to have its own airfield? Havenwood Sky Ranch. Closed in the 50s. Lily's eyes widened. "Really? Where was it?" Tom indicated a faded aerial photo. "Just outside town near the old quarry. Overgrown now." Lily absorbed the image, her imagination sparking. A forgotten airfield, a relic of a bygone era. It resonated deeply, a secret waiting to be unearthed. A seed of hope sprouted within her. Maybe Havenwood held more than she thought. Ben climbed the stairs, trailing the scent of grease and engine oil. He saw Lily and Tom, their faces lit by the screen's glow. He leaned against the doorframe, observing them, a subtle smile gracing his lips. They were his world, his motivation for navigating the endless grind. "Dinner's almost ready," he announced, his voice rough but gentle. "Got some hamburger on the way home. Nothing fancy, but it's food." Lily glanced up, her eyes alight with excitement. "Dad, did you know Havenwood used to have an airfield?" Ben paused, surprised. "Yeah, I seem to recall something about that. A long time ago, before my time. Maybe we could go look for it," Lily suggested, her voice vibrant. "Maybe there's something still there." Ben met her gaze, then Tom's, finding the same hopeful glint reflected back. He hesitated, then nodded. "Sure," he said. "Maybe we could. Someday." The prospect of uncovering something extraordinary with his kids, even just a piece of local lore, held unexpected appeal. But for now, he was just thankful to have survived another day. Life in Havenwood was a persistent cycle of repairs and payments, of wrenches and grocery bills. Yet, sometimes amid the struggle, moments of connection, of shared aspirations, emerged, making it all worthwhile. He smiled, a genuine smile that crinkled the corners of his eyes. For now, that was enough. The mysterious delivery. The tremor resonated through the concrete floor of Miller's auto, a guttural thrum distinct from the familiar chorus of sputtering engines and battered pickups. Ben swiveled from under Mrs. Henderson's Buick, smearing grease across his brow with a swipe of his hand. A flatbed trailer, far longer than any local hauler, crept into the lot, its tires grinding on the loose gravel. He straightened, shading his eyes against the glare. Its cargo was colossal, swathed entirely in a heavy, silver tarp. The wind teased the covering, hinting at the strange, sculpted form beneath. The driver, a man shaped like an appliance with a surprisingly amiable face, swung down. "Miller," he rumbled, extending a hand that engulfed Ben's. "Got a delivery." "Wasn't expecting any shipments today," Ben replied, a prickle of unease at the base of his neck. Oversized deliveries usually spelled trouble, or at least unnecessary complexity. "This ain't parts," the driver chuckled, a bass note in the afternoon air. "This is a project." He inclined his head toward the veiled load. Ben circled the flatbed, curiosity warring with his apprehension. Heavy-duty straps secured the tarp, yet the subtle suggestion of wings, a fuselage, a tail, was undeniable. Could it be? "What is it exactly?" he asked, his voice hushed. The driver grinned, teeth flashing against his sun-beaten complexion. "That, my friend, is a bird of a different feather." He produced a clipboard from beneath his arm. "Sign here." Ben scribbled his name, barely registering the printed name on the form. He focused on the driver as he detached the straps, the tarp whispering as it loosened its grip. With practiced strength, the man peeled back the cover, revealing an airplane. But not just any airplane. This was a relic, its lines classically elegant, the metal glinting even beneath a film of dust. It looked lifted straight from a vintage newsreel. Ben recognized its silhouette from old documentaries. A biplane. "Whoa," he breathed, his worries momentarily forgotten. As if drawn by his reaction, Lily and Tom materialized in the garage doorway, eyes wide with disbelief. "Dad, what is that?" Lily asked, her voice hushed with wonder. She edged forward, her fingers twitching to capture the machine on paper. Tom had already reached the flatbed, his gaze dissecting every rivet, every cable. "It's a Curtis Jenny, I think. Maybe a standard J1? The aileron design. Dad, this is unreal." Ben watched his children, their faces lit with an enthusiasm he hadn't witnessed in months, and a warmth bloomed within him. The driver clapped Ben on the shoulder. "She's all yours. Need some TLC, from what I understand." He handed Ben a thick envelope. "Payments inside, and contact info for the client." He hesitated, a shadow of doubt crossing his features. "Good luck, Miller." With a curt nod, he climbed back into his cab and rumbled off, leaving Ben and his children to gape at the aircraft. Ben opened the envelope, his eyebrows arching as he tallied the bills. A generous sum, enough to keep the shop solvent for quite some time, perhaps even enough to... He banished the thought. One step at a time. He flipped over the contact information, expecting a name, a corporate letterhead, something tangible. All that was there was a phone number and a single cryptic word, aviator. He tucked the envelope away, a disquieting sensation taking root. Who would send an airplane like this, with such ample funds and such sparse details? It felt off. This was more than just a mechanical repair. It was a riddle constructed of canvas and steel. "Can we touch it, Dad? Please," Lily begged, her eyes sparkling with curiosity. Tom was already tracing a finger along the wing, murmuring about the intricacies of fabric dope and control surfaces. Ben wavered, then relented. He couldn't deny them this. Or himself, for that matter. "All right," he conceded, a grin tugging at his lips. "But gently. We don't know what we're getting into yet." As Lily and Tom buzzed around the plane, Ben circled it slowly, his gaze absorbing every nuance. The wings were clad in canvas, taut, and surprisingly well-preserved. The engine, a colossal network of metal and wires, looked as if it hadn't sparked to life in decades. The cockpit was exposed, revealing a time-worn leather seat and a labyrinth of levers and gauges. He reached out and touched the fuselage, the metal cool and smooth against his palm. He knew little about aircraft mechanics, particularly those of antiquated models, but the artistry was unmistakable. This was more than just a machine. It was a relic of a bygone era. He glanced at his children, their faces animated as they examined their newfound prize. He considered the money now stashed in his pocket, the anonymous benefactor, the monumental task that awaited. He didn't know precisely what he'd stumbled into, but one thing was indisputable. Life in Harmony Creek had just veered onto a vastly different course. Whispers of wings. Lily, perched on the edge of the biplane's cockpit, gripped the worn leather of the control stick. "Bandits at 3 o'clock, she yelled, her voice echoing slightly in the cavernous garage. Tom, sprawled on the wing beside her, adjusted a pair of imaginary goggles. "I've got them, Red Baron," engaging evasive maneuvers. He leaned into the wind, even though there wasn't any, mimicking the tilt of the plane in a dogfight. Ben watched them from beneath the wing, a small smile tugging at his lips. He leaned against the fuselage, a wrench dangling from his calloused hand. The late afternoon sun streamed through the open garage door, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air and casting long shadows across the concrete floor. He was supposed to be assessing the engine, cataloging the repairs needed, but the sight of his children lost in their world of make-believe was a welcome distraction. "Careful now," he cautioned, his voice low and warm. "That's a delicate piece of machinery you're playing on." Lily hopped down, her eyes shining. "Dad, it's amazing. Did you see the loop-de-loop I did?" Tom, ever the pragmatist, was already inspecting the plane's exterior. "The wings are made of fabric, Dad. Like real fabric." "What kind of fabric is it?" Ben chuckled. "Linen, probably. Doped to make it waterproof and airtight." He finally turned his attention back to the engine, a marvel of brass and steel. He ran a hand along the smooth curve of a cylinder head, feeling the cool metal beneath his fingertips. He recognized the engine type, a rotary, but this particular model was unlike anything he'd seen before. Intricate, almost delicate. He pulled out his phone and snapped a few pictures, zooming in on the serial numbers etched into the engine block. A quick online search yielded nothing. This wasn't just old, it was rare. Lost in thought, he didn't notice Tom until the boy was tugging at his sleeve. "Dad, look what I found." Tom held out a small, leather-bound pouch. It was tucked away in a compartment beneath the pilot's seat, almost hidden from view. Inside were several faded photographs, their edges worn and brittle. Ben took them carefully, his heart skipping a beat. The photos showed the biplane in its prime, soaring through the sky, performing daring aerial maneuvers. In one, a pilot, goggles pushed up on his forehead, grinned at the camera, his face weathered and tanned. He wore a leather flying jacket and a white silk scarf. The aviator. Wow. Lily breathed, peering over Ben's shoulder. He looks like a real adventurer. Tom pointed to a photo of the plane flying over a snow-capped mountain range. Where do you think this is? Ben shook his head, mesmerized. I have no idea. Somewhere beautiful, though. He noticed something else in the pouch, a folded piece of paper. He carefully unfolded it, revealing a hand-drawn map. The ink was faded, the paper yellowed with age, but the landmarks were still visible. It looked like a section of coastline, with a small island marked with an X. What is it, Dad? Lily asked, her voice full of curiosity. I don't know yet, Ben admitted, his mind racing. The map, the photos, the plane itself. It was all a puzzle, and he was only just beginning to piece it together. The anonymous client, the generous payment, the secrecy surrounding the whole deal, it was starting to feel less like a simple repair job and more like something bigger. He glanced at his children, their faces alight with excitement. He didn't want to get their hopes up, but he couldn't deny the thrill that was coursing through him. This plane, this mystery, had breathed new life into their little corner of the world. He refolded the map and tucked it back into the pouch, placing it carefully on his workbench. Okay, you two. Time to pack it in for the night. Homework awaits. Lily groaned, but Tom was already heading towards the house, his mind clearly still buzzing with possibilities. Ben lingered in the garage, running his hand along the plane's fuselage. The metal was cool to the touch, almost vibrating with a silent energy. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the garage floor, Ben felt a sense of unease settle over him. This plane wasn't just a machine. It was a vessel of secrets, a time capsule filled with echoes of the past. And he had a feeling that those echoes were about to become a lot louder. The Billionaire's secret. Ben's gloved hand glided across the fuselage. The fresh paint shimmered under the stark fluorescent tubes, yet something in the curve's flow seemed amiss. He narrowed his eyes, his fingers retracing the line. There, almost invisible beneath the glossy surface, lurked a shallow depression. Someone had deliberately concealed something. He reached for paint solvent and a cotton bud. With meticulous care, he dabbed at the blemish, unveiling a slender, rectangular plate. More solvent, more gentle coaxing. Finally, letters blossomed from the metal, an elegant script spelling out, Sterling Aviation. Sterling. The name buzzed in his memory like a trapped fly. Where had he encountered it before? He racked his brain, the sharp tang of turpentine stinging his nostrils. Tom, he bellowed, the sound reverberating through the cavernous space of the workshop. A moment later, Tom appeared, his face illuminated by the cool light of his tablet, scrubbing grime from his hands with a shop rag. What's up, Dad? Ben gestured toward the nameplate. Sterling Aviation. Ring any bells? Tom's brow furrowed as he concentrated. A few taps on his tablet. Sterling, yet distantly. Isn't that Arthur Sterling? The billionaire hermit. A billionaire? Ben felt his gut clench. This wasn't just some weekend hobbyist indulging a passion for vintage aircraft. This was different. Tom scrolled, his eyes widening. He made his pile, in robotics and AI, apparently. Super secretive. Lives in that huge estate outside Oakhaven. Sterling Manor, they call it. Nobody ever sees him. He pivoted the tablet, displaying a hazy aerial view of a sprawling manor house swallowed by dense forest. It resembled something ripped from the pages of a Gothic romance. And this plane belongs to him. Ben mumbled, dragging a hand through his already unruly hair. The pressure he'd been under intensified. He suddenly felt acutely aware of the peeling paint on the workshop walls, the persistent reek of oil, the utter banality of his own life juxtaposed against the world this machine represented. Seems so, Tom replied, still engrossed in his research. Says here he's kind of an oddball. Hoards rare relics, funds obscure scientific ventures, and, apparently, collects antique airplanes. Ben stared at the biplane, its importance now amplified exponentially. Every imperfection, every expertly restored element now bore the weight of Sterling's vast fortune and enigmatic persona. He imagined the man, a spectral figure within a palatial estate, and a wave of disquiet washed over him. "Dad, check this out." Tom broke into his thoughts, highlighting another snippet of information. Sterling Aviation wasn't just a casual interest. Back in the 30s, they were at the forefront of aeronautical engineering. Cutting-edge stuff. But then they vanished. No explanation offered. The company dissolved, and Sterling pivoted to other pursuits. Vanished, Ben echoed, a shiver tracing its way down his spine. What had transpired? And why, decades later, was Sterling painstakingly restoring this particular aircraft? He circled the biplane, studying it anew. The singular engine design, the clandestine compartment, it all suggested something more substantial than a simple restoration. It was a sliver of forgotten history, shrouded in enigma, and he, Ben Miller, was now charged with piecing it back together. A sudden impulse surged through him, to call Sterling to demand answers. But what would he even say? He pictured the billionaire's aloof, measured voice on the other end, and the words dissolved in his throat. Instead, he returned to the engine, the complex web of wires and gears, a familiar, comforting landscape. He could salvage this. He could resurrect this machine. That was his domain. But the disquiet persisted, a low thrum beneath his practiced competence. Later that night, with Lily asleep and Tom immersed in a coding project, Ben found himself alone in the hushed living room. He gazed at the time-worn photographs he'd discovered within the plane's confines. The pilot, the woman, their smiles fixed for eternity. Who were they? What secrets did they guard? And how did their lives intertwine with Arthur Sterling's? He retrieved his phone and researched Sterling Manor. The grainy aerial image reappeared, the mansion dominating the landscape against the inky canvas of the sky. He magnified the image, attempting to penetrate the thick curtain of trees that encircled the estate, searching for any hint of activity. A wave of frustration washed over him, along with a familiar ache in his chest. He was a craftsman, a father, a provider. Not an explorer, a sleuth, a guardian of secrets. He simply desired to repair the damn plane and receive his due compensation. Yet, something deep within him whispered that this endeavor was poised to become far more complicated than he could have ever anticipated. Clues from the past. A musty aroma, a blend of aged leather and settled dust, teased Ben's senses as he wrestled with a recalcitrant panel beneath the biplane's cockpit. A fugitive wire was his quarry, prompting muttered complaints about fickle circuitry and the questionable choices that had deposited him here on a Saturday afternoon. Tom, absorbed by a YouTube lesson on magneto calibration, sported a concentrated frown. Lily, usually found sketching in some nook, was conspicuously absent. With a final heave, the panel yielded, revealing not the expected wiring nest, but a shallow, oblong recess. "Well, now," Ben murmured, peering into the unexpected cavity. Too cramped for tools, too deliberately hidden for simple spare parts. He reached in, his fingers encountering something stiff and brittle. He extracted a rolled map, its parchment yellowed and delicate with age. It depicted a section of the Himalayas, rendered with painstaking artistry. Mountain summits were etched in fine lines. Rivers meandered across the surface like shimmering threads, and minuscule, faded notations suggested potential landing zones, or perhaps even campsites. Intrigued, Ben delved back into the compartment. This time, his fingers closed around a slender, leather-bound journal. Its cover, smoothed with handling, bore barely discernible gilt lettering. "Sterling Aviation," he read aloud, a sudden chill prickling his skin. He opened it, the aged paper rustling softly. The initial entry was marked 1937. Elegant, flowing script filled the pages with tales of audacious flights, treacherous skies, and far-flung locales. Marrakesh, Cairo, Kathmandu, vibrant scenes bloomed from the faded ink. The writer, presumably a pilot, extolled the thrill of chasing horizons, navigating by celestial bodies, and the heady freedom of flight. "Whoa!" A voice breathed close behind him. Lily. Her eyes were wide with curiosity, a charcoal stick clutched in her hand. "What did you find?" "Looks like someone left us a message from the past," Ben replied, offering her the journal. Lily gingerly turned the pages, her fingers tracing the elegant penmanship. Her face brightened. "These places, they sound amazing," she breathed. Snatching her sketchbook, she began to draw with fervent energy, the charcoal dancing across the paper. The bustling souks of Marrakesh, the imposing pyramids of Giza, the snow-dusted peaks of the Himalayas, all emerged under her hand, inspired by the pilot's vivid descriptions. Drawn by the commotion, Tom abandoned his tutorial. "Maps? A logbook? Let me have a look." He grabbed the Himalayan map from Ben and rushed to his computer. After scanning it, he began cross-referencing the landmarks with satellite views. "I bet I can pinpoint the exact routes they took," he announced, fingers flying across the keyboard. Hours vanished unnoticed. Lily populated pages with sketches, her imagination soaring on the wings of the pilot's adventures. Tom, fueled by caffeine and digital cartography, traced the biplane's historical journeys, identifying forgotten airstrips and hidden valleys. Ben, meantime, remained absorbed by the logbook, scrutinizing the entries, seeking clues, any reason why Arthur Sterling, a man seemingly erased from history, would possess a plane with such a rich history. A name recurred, Elara. The pilot referenced her often, celebrating her intellect, her spirit, her unwavering faith in aviation's future. "Elara believes we can unite the world," one passage declared. She envisions a future where anyone can take flight. The sentence ended abruptly. The handwriting deteriorated in subsequent entries. The tone darkened. The pilot wrote of obstacles, dwindling resources, a growing sense of apprehension. The final notation was succinct. "They're watching us." Ben closed the journal, a disquieting knot forming in his stomach. This was more than a simple restoration project. This was a riddle, a conundrum that seemed to deepen with each revelation. He glanced at his children, their faces illuminated by the computer screen and the dim garage light, their eyes bright with fervor. He knew he couldn't protect them from this. They were already too entwined, too emotionally invested. He could only hope he wasn't leading them into peril. The missing piece. Ben cursed under his breath as the wrench slipped, leaving a smear of grime on his palm. Obsessed with the engine, the fuselage, the very architecture of the biplane, he'd missed a hairline fracture in his plan. A vital, yet minuscule component of the magneto had vanished, the interrupter arm. Without it, the engine would remain silent, a metal beast refusing to awaken. It felt akin to crafting bread without yeast. The base ingredients were present, but the final result would fall flat, a leaden disappointment. He raked a hand through already unruly hair, painting a dark stripe across his brow. The deadline pressed down on him like a physical weight, the demand for delivery almost crushing. This wasn't just a repair job. It was the foundation beneath their roof, Lily's access to watercolors, Tom's science fair dreams. It was about safeguarding their fragile little world. "Everything all right, Dad?" Lily's voice, a gentle probe, emerged from the hangar doorway. Sunlight bled across the floor, illuminating the dust motes in a dance of golden light. Ben pasted on a smile, hoping to conceal his spiraling worry. "Just a minor hiccup, sweetie. A missing piece. Nothing insurmountable." He felt the unwavering scrutiny of her gaze. Lily possessed an uncanny ability to see past his facades. He loathed to burden her, yet knew she always sensed his unease. "What kind of part is it?" Tom inquired, materializing beside his sister, phone already in hand. "Maybe I can find it online." "An interrupter arm for the magneto," Ben replied, striving to keep his tone even. "Good luck sourcing one for a relic older than your grandfather." Undeterred, Tom began his digital quest. Lily drifted closer, her focus locked on the disassembled magneto. Could you fabricate one?" she asked, her voice barely audible. Ben exhaled heavily. "I could attempt it, but the precision required is immense. The timing must be absolute. Otherwise," he let the sentence hang, reluctant to voice the potential ramifications. The afternoon bled into evening. Tom navigated the labyrinth of the internet, searching vintage aircraft supply sites, niche online communities, anything that might yield the elusive interrupter arm. Each fruitless click ratcheted up Ben's tension. Lily, meanwhile, was hunched over a workbench, her pencils sketching with frantic energy. She filled the page with meticulous drawings of the biplane, zeroing in on the engine, the propeller, the very source of their present predicament. Any luck? Ben's voice was gravelly with exhaustion. He'd ransacked his own inventory, but all he found were mismatched components. Too modern, too large, simply incorrect. Tom shook his head, his face illuminated by the cold light of the screen. Nothing, Dad. It's as though it vanished from existence. Lily slid her sketchbook across the table towards Ben. He saw not a generic drawing, but a meticulously rendered depiction of the interrupter arm itself. She had captured every subtle curve, every precise angle, every almost invisible detail. I know it's not the genuine article, she said softly, but maybe it can offer a clearer vision, Dad. Perhaps it will unlock the solution to building one. Ben gazed at the drawing, his chest swelling with a complex emotion, a fusion of pride and profound gratitude. Lily's capacity for detail was breathtaking. He studied the sketch, tracing the lines with a calloused fingertip, and a spark of inspiration ignited in his mind. He seized a piece of discarded metal and a file. "All right, crew," he announced, a renewed resolve tightening his voice. "Let's see if we can't forge our own piece of luck." The hangar reverberated with renewed energy, the whine of machinery and the delicate tap of tools replacing the oppressive silence. Ben worked with a focused intensity, guided by Lily's drawing and Tom's unwavering moral support. He understood it was a gamble, yet he refused to concede defeat. Not with his children watching, their futures hanging by a thread. Ingenuity takes flight. The monitor cast a spectral sheen across Tom's upturned face, his eyes pools of concentrated light. He plunged through the labyrinthine depths of a vintage aircraft forum, a digital Atlantis teeming with faded images and arcane terminology. Hours evaporated as he chased vaporous leads, each click a fervent wish for revelation. From the doorway, Ben observed, one shoulder against the jam, neglected coffee growing cold in his grip. He disliked seeing Tom tethered to the screen, yet admired the boy's fierce tenacity. "Find anything?" Ben murmured, careful not to shatter the fragile focus. Without glancing up, Tom said, "Close maybe. Someone's recounting a Zenith Cirrus overhaul from, get this, 31. Claims to have salvaged remnants." His fingers danced across the keyboard, navigating the antiquated interface with surprising ease. Inactive for years, but I messaged him. Ben sighed, abandoning the doorway. "Keep your expectations in check, kiddo. Still, good hunting." He tousled Tom's hair and retreated to the garage, the percussive music of his tools a grounding contrast to the ensuing electronic hush. Later, Lily tentatively approached Ben, presenting a large sheet of paper with a timid smile. He was grappling with a seized bolt, his hands slick with grease, his brow a landscape of furrows. "Dad, could you look at this?" He wiped his hands and accepted the drawing. It depicted the missing carburetor element, rendered with breathtaking precision. Lily had not only captured its form, but its texture, the subtle erosion of time, and the very way light played upon its surface. It transcended mere blueprint. It was a study in form and light. "Lily, this is astonishing," Ben whispered, rotating the drawing. "You have a genuine gift." Her voice, nearly swallowed by the air, was, "I had an idea. Maybe we could fashion one? A replica? I could sculpt it in clay, then maybe cast it." Ben gazed at the artwork, then at Lily, his mind a whirlwind. He'd never entertained such a notion. He was a mechanic, a mender, not a creator. Yet, witnessing the painstaking detail in Lily's artistry, a flicker of possibility ignited. "That's actually brilliant, Lily Bug," he responded, his voice laced with honest awe. "But casting metal is complex. We need a furnace, molds more than just an afternoon's work." "What about resin?" Tom suggested, materializing from behind a wall of tires. He held up his phone. "I found a video online. People are crafting all sorts of things. Not as robust as the original, but maybe viable temporarily, just to check if the engine runs. Ben shifted his gaze from Lily's sketch to Tom's animated face, a gradual smile blossoming on his lips. Resin, lighter, more manageable, and potentially reinforced. A long shot, certainly, but one worth taking. Okay, he declared, his voice ringing with fresh determination. Okay, team, let's do it. Tom, you're on resin duty. Lily, you're the artist. I'll figure out the practicalities. But, he added, injecting a note of firmness, we're in this together. No pressure, no expectations. Just experimentation. The garage thrummed with renewed energy. Tom, fueled by caffeine and exhilaration, devoured online tutorials. Lily meticulously shaped the clay model, her brow furrowed in intense focus. Ben, spurred by their collective zeal, cleared space and assembled supplies. The atmosphere crackled with shared purpose, a sense of potential that had long been dormant. As twilight painted the garage in lengthening shadows, Ben paused, leaning against the workbench. Tom was carefully mixing the resin, Lily painstakingly refining the clay form, and the air hung heavy with the scent of chemicals and burgeoning hope. He watched his children, their faces illuminated by the gentle pool of light cast by the work lamp, and a surge of pride welled within him. They were more than just his children. They were ingenious, imaginative, and resilient. Perhaps, just perhaps, they could succeed. And perhaps, just perhaps, this dilapidated biplane wasn't just a millstone, but an opportunity. A chance to impart the value of resourcefulness, the power of collaboration, and the significance of perseverance, even when the odds seemed insurmountable. And to remind himself that he was more than a struggling mechanic. He was their father, and he would move mountains for them. A glimpse of Sterling. The engine's throaty growl filled the garage, banishing the lingering smells of resin and day-old coffee. Ben twisted the throttle, a wide grin spreading across his face. Beside him, Lily's hands flew together, her eyes outshining even the sun's rays pouring in through the open doorway. Even Tom, typically lost in the digital world, was practically vibrating with anticipation, a rare smile gracing his usually serious expression. The painstakingly crafted carburetor replica, Lily's artistic vision realized through Tom's complex calculations, had roared to life. This wasn't just successful, it was a genuine triumph of ingenuity. Ben eased the throttle, letting the engine purr into a steady rhythm. All right, settle down, you two, he chuckled, though his own elation mirrored theirs. He killed the ignition, and the sudden quiet was almost startling. Again, do it again, Papa, Lily urged, tugging at his sleeve. But before Ben could hit the starter, a voice, refined and bearing the timbre of experience, cut through the air. Extraordinary. They turned as one. Framed in the morning light stood an elderly gentleman. Impeccably attired in a bespoke suit, he leaned on a silver-topped cane, his gaze sharp and intelligent. Ben recognized him at once from a grainy online image. Arthur Sterling himself. Ben wiped his greasy palms on his coveralls, a flicker of apprehension clouding his joy. What did Sterling want? Had they overstepped some invisible line? Mr. Sterling, Ben greeted, stepping forward. This is unexpected. Sterling offered a measured nod. Indeed, I find direct observation enlightening. I've been following your progress with considerable interest. His gaze swept over the biplane, pausing on the vibrant details Lily had painted on the fuselage, then settling on the cluttered workbench, a testament to their collaborative efforts. Resourceful, genuinely resourceful. Lily, shedding her usual reticence, stepped forward, her artistic drive overriding her shyness. You built this plane, Mr. Sterling? Sterling's expression softened. Ages ago, my dear. Another lifetime. He paused, a wistful smile touching his lips. And you, young lady, possess an exceptional eye. That replica, it surpasses even the original schematics. He then focused on Tom, who seemed to shrink under his gaze. And you, young man, the architect behind this resin miracle. A flush crept up Tom's neck as he pushed his glasses higher on his nose. "I merely assisted with the structural integrity calculations, sir, ensuring it was stable." Sterling chuckled warmly. Modesty, another admirable quality. "Mr. Miller," he said, turning back to Ben, his tone becoming more serious, "I've witnessed a great deal of fervor surrounding this restoration. But I've also detected something more profound: dedication, passion, and a remarkable degree of aptitude, passed down, it seems." He paused, tapping his cane lightly on the concrete floor. "I arrived today bearing a proposition. Several, in fact." He addressed Lily. "The Sterling Aviation Museum boasts a team of highly skilled restoration artists dedicated to preserving historical aircraft. Your talent, I believe, would be exceptionally valuable. I would be honored to offer you an apprenticeship." Lily's jaw dropped slightly. She shot a glance at Ben, her eyes wide with stunned disbelief. "An apprenticeship? At an actual museum?" Sterling swiveled his attention to Tom. "And you, young man, with your knack for engineering and problem-solving. We have an internship program designed to nurture the next generation of innovators in aviation. I believe you harbor the potential to become one of the foremost." Tom's mouth hung open in surprise. An internship? He'd only fantasized about such a chance. Ben found himself speechless. He gazed at his children, their faces illuminated with shock and burgeoning excitement. He'd been so consumed with the restoration, with simply making ends meet, that he'd nearly overlooked the depth of their gifts, the untapped potential residing within them. Sterling then turned back to Ben, his countenance softening. "This aircraft represents more than mere metal and fabric, Mr. Miller. It embodies a piece of history, a legacy, and I believe your family is uniquely equipped to appreciate that. Indeed, I wish to offer you the permanent position of lead mechanic for the museum's collection, with a substantial salary increase and a comprehensive benefits package, of course." Ben stared at Sterling, the weight of the offer pressing upon him. This was more than just a job. It was a chance to provide his children with the future they deserved. A chance, finally, to breathe freely. "Mr. Sterling," Ben managed, his voice thick with emotion. I'm at a loss for words." Sterling smiled, a genuine and heartfelt expression that lit up his face. "Simply say yes, Mr. Miller. Say yes, and allow us to embark on this new chapter together." New horizons. The hangar pulsed with a newfound energy, a far cry from the previous day's desperation. Now, it was a symphony of focused zeal. Ben, a forgotten melody bubbling from his lips, secured the final bolt on the aileron cable. Above, Lily, perched precariously on a ladder, meticulously painted the plane's emblem, a burnished silver wing, catching the light like a whispered secret. Nearby, hunched intently over a laptop, Tom wrestled with engine diagnostics, his expression a study in concentration. "Almost flight-ready," Ben declared, swiping a streak of grease from his brow. "Just a few more tweaks, and she'll be soaring." Lily descended, taking in her handiwork. "It's breathtaking, Dad. Exactly as Mr. Sterling envisioned." Without lifting his gaze from the screen, Tom confirmed, "Fuel pressure optimal, oil temperature stable. All systems check." Ben tousled Tom's hair affectionately. "Smart Alec. Appreciate it, though." He clapped, the sound echoing in the vast space. "All right, pit crew, let's roll her out." The ensuing hours blurred in a flurry of activity. They gingerly guided the biplane from the hangar and onto the sun-baked airstrip. A refreshing breeze tempered the heat, carrying the mingled scents of aviation fuel and fresh paint. Ben, every movement precise, methodical, worked through the pre-flight checklist. Turning to his children, he asked, "Ready for this?" Lily's eyes blazed with anticipation. "Born to fly." Tom offered a slight, anxious smile. "As ready as I'll ever be." The cockpit embraced Ben like an old friend, the aroma of leather and oil triggering a flood of memories. He flicked the ignition, and the engine erupted in a thunderous roar, vibrations humming up through the chassis and into his very soul. He taxied onto the runway, the wings catching the wind. He glanced back. Lily and Tom's faces shone with expectant delight. He inhaled deeply and slammed the throttle forward. The biplane surged ahead, devouring the runway. The ground dissolved into a smear of color. Then, with a gentle buck, they were aloft. Ben eased the plane into a bank, granting his children a panoramic view. Below, the world unfolded in a tapestry of fields and woods, shimmering under the afternoon sun. Wow! Lily breathed, her voice hushed with wonder. It's like riding a dream. Tom, his nervousness dissipated, pointed towards a circling hawk. Look, Dad, we're higher than it. Ben grinned. He arced the plane through the air, the machine responding to his touch with fluid grace. A forgotten sense of liberation washed over him, lightening the burden he'd carried for so long. He watched his children, their faces illuminated by pure joy, and understood that this moment, this shared adventure, was priceless. Awaiting their return was Arthur Sterling, his face etched with quiet gratification. Well done, Ben. A truly superb flight, I trust. Ben countered with a grin. More than words can say, Arthur. More than words can say. Weeks drifted by. Lily, ensconced at a drafting table in a brightly lit studio, was surrounded by sketches and blueprints. Mr. Sterling observed her, his eyes mirroring her passion. Your talent is undeniable, Lily. You see beauty in every contour, every precise line. Never relinquish that vision. Lily glowed, swirling her brush in a pot of ink. I won't, Mr. Sterling. I promise. Meanwhile, Tom, absorbed in a complex computer simulation, was designing a revolutionary aircraft wing. Now enjoying unfettered access to the Sterling Aviation Museum's computing power, his fingers danced across the keyboard, his face lit by the ethereal glow of the screen. Sterling, watching from the doorway, gave a curt nod of approval. The boy was a prodigy, his insatiable curiosity destined for greatness. Ben found himself leading a team of mechanics, breathing life back into forgotten flying machines. He reveled in the challenge, the deep satisfaction of revitalizing these magnificent relics. He had rediscovered his vocation, a newfound pride burning within. No longer just a struggling mechanic, he was a master artisan, a custodian of aviation heritage. One evening, under a sky streaked with the colors of sunset, the family gathered by the restored biplane. Lily traced the elegant curve of the wing. Tom tweaked a setting on the panel, and Ben stared at the plane with a profound sense of fulfillment. We actually did it, Lily whispered, her voice thick with emotion. Ben embraced his children, pulling them close. Yes, we did. Together. Tom nestled into his father's side. Thank you, Dad, for everything you've done. Ben squeezed them tightly. Thank you, both of you. You gave me something to believe in again. The biplane stood as a symbol of their arduous journey, a testament to their tenacity, their ingenuity, and their enduring love. It was more than just a conveyance. It was a vessel that had carried them toward uncharted futures, toward fresh starts. And as they looked ahead, they knew that no matter what tribulations awaited, they would confront them united, a family, inextricably linked by the wings of their shared odyssey.